the Minister as well as her officials for making the presentation today. We certainly appreciate the work you do for Canada. And just on the topic of morale as well as the professionalism of CRA, obviously there's offices both in Kelowna and my former riding, Obanon-Kokakawa in Penticton. And having toured them and met some of the people that are involved, they are certainly working very hard. That being said, I'd like to discuss just a little bit about CRA. Obviously, CWAZA is somewhat at arm's length from government for good reasons. And because of that, there's an opportunity for us to talk about things that have been risen of concern. For example, the issue of campgrounds, particularly around whether a campground is now no longer eligible for the preferential small business rate. I believe it has to do with the active versus passive nature of their business. Many of these businesses are seasonal. And in British Columbia, Minister, I'm not sure if you're aware, obviously real estate prices have increased dramatically over the past 20 years. Tourism is very important to the Okanagan. And many of these smaller campgrounds may decide that if they cannot run as a small business and access that, instead of being classified as large operations, large million-dollar, corporations, that they may simply just sell. And so this is a concern in my area.
We're here to talk about supplementary estimates.
Well, we've always had, an opportunity, Mr. Chair, to talk about these things, and these are directly to operations that we've been talking about today. Both officials have spoke about how they work and are targeting certain businesses with their employees to look after these things. So I'm speaking directly to this area. So I'd like the Minister, just if she can, or her officials can just explain why there seems to be a difference in this area.
Écoutez, moi je peux vous parler au niveau des terrains de camping.
Well, when it comes to campgrounds, I can tell you that we really calculate everything based on the services offered on a campground. So people who have a right to rebates will have Wi-Fi services, sewage services. It's really based on the services they offer on a case-by-case basis. But of course, a campground that offers no services, is just out in the field under the great blue sky, is not really offering their clients anything specific, so they won't have a right to the same types of credits as another campground that's, let's say, hiring people to offer services and so on and so forth.
Based on the kinds of services that they offer, and I do recognize that there are some campgrounds that offer different services. And then Todd's campground in Peachland has gone from just tents, to RVs and to other modes. So could you explain a little bit more?
Oui, mais je vous invite à aller voir de toute façon.
Well, I suggest that you look at this on the agency's website. We had a couple of requests about this, so we put up on the website all the information about campgrounds. I also worked with Chambers of Commerce, and you will see a good deal there about campgrounds right up on the agency's website.
Officials and yourself, and with all due respect, I'd just like to hear a little bit more information. Do any of your officials have anything to add?
To bring it back to the 440 million, for example, those aren't the taxpayers that would be the focus. So none of the new monies you'd be voting today would be focused there. In fact, we reorganized our audit function to divide it in two. So I have responsibility for the 10% that yields the 8 billion. My colleague has responsibility for small and medium enterprises. In that space, she's doing things like the liaison officer initiative, where we took auditors off the audit beat and made them outreach officers to go and talk to people and explain their obligations. So I would say what the agency is trying to do in the space that you're describing is understand the taxpayers' needs, look at it from the taxpayer's perspective, see if we can assist in moving them into compliance, keep the line of communication open with the Department of Finance, where time and the evolution kind of makes this explicit wording in the legislation have an impact that wasn't intended. And back to the 444 million in the crackdown, that's really focused elsewhere. We have no projects in my shop that are aimed at campgrounds.
Do I have Anytime.
No, you're at a time, and
Thank you. Thank
can the
you, Minister. Thank you.
minister
Appreciate both your contributions.
stay for